Welcome, everyone. This is Living a Bella Vida Podcast, and I'm Erin Schmidt, editor-in-chief of Bella Vida Magazine. I love bringing inspiring people to you that can inspire you to live a beautiful life. And today I'm so excited to have Krista Kim. Krista Kim is a world famous artist. She has traveled the world displaying her art in some incredible places. She is inspiring, and she also really is using her art to connect with our spirit, our soul, and creating a experience more than just a piece of art. So welcome to the podcast, Krista. It's so nice to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure.
Yeah, so I'm excited that you live close by and we can get to know each other better, maybe even have a follow-up podcast about some of the incredible things you're doing. And I always love to know, like, how did you first get inspired to start in artwork? And did you study art? And then how did you transition into digital art?
I've always had the natural affinity for art. I've always been an artist. And so I remember when I
Yeah.
was 5 or 6 and you play adult, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you start role playing adult. And I always wanted to be an artist. And I always envisioned myself
Yeah.
as an artist. And I was, always drawing at school, where, painting and all of that. And I was constantly creating things. I'm just a creative person and it's
Right.
it's never ending. So when I was growing up, though, my parents were very protective, and they thought, oh, it's an unsafe sort of like career choice. So they encouraged me to do something else, more sort of, I don't know, stable. So I studied political science to become a journalist because I can write, and that became a career for me. When I left university, I went to University of Toronto, and political science was not natural for me. Frankly, it was something that I don't know. I just felt like I had to study intuitively, and I did, and I'm glad I did. So after graduating, I moved to Seoul, and it was in Seoul when I started to write for the Courier Herald newspaper as a journalist. And I was writing for the Culture Beat, and I did that, but then I didn't feel inspired by it. I wasn't feeding my soul, if you will, right? I really wanted to create, and I felt that urge, and so I eventually got married and then moved to Japan between 2005 and 2008, and for 3 years and a half. And it was in Japan where the vocation and the pull toward being creative was so strong and so profound that I couldn't deny it anymore. And Japan is a place where especially if you're creative, you're greatly inspired. And it was the ability for the Japanese to spiritually express art through every creative outlet that really inspired me. When you go to Kyoto for me is like my sacred space. And I was so deeply moved by the Roenji Temple Garden. It's one of the most sacred gardens in Japan, built around 500 years ago by Japanese monks that created an immersive experience of Zen that had such a profound effect on me. And I was able to experience firsthand the power of the mirror of the mind, where your environment and the way it's designed and curated can affect your mental state and your wellness.
Wow.
I had that
Absolutely.
moment, right? And I was like, oh my God, this is so serene, and this is an immersive experience. And I thought, oh my God, I had an epiphany. I thought, I have to create art like this. I'm so inspired. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm just going to do it. And I started painting in Japan. I started really going nuts, getting private lessons. And I kept painting from that time onward. And then we eventually moved to Singapore, 2010 to 2015. And I was involved in a narcissistic abusive experience, marriage, and I was a victim of a lot of like baby reindeer. I mean, this is the kind of marriage I had, unfortunately.
Mhm.
And it really, yeah, I'm a strong woman. I'm a strong person, and that's why I thought I could deal with it and handle it and change my partner. I loved him so dearly, and I see the beauty of him, but really, you can't do that. It's impossible. The other person has to be on their own path and their own journey towards,
Right.
healing, etc. So For me, my artistic journey and entering digital was greatly tied to my spiritual awakening and self-healing from that relationship. So I learned transcendental meditation in 2013. I was so depressed and so anxious, and my children were at the time 2 and 4. And I knew I really had to get my feet back on the ground and get healed and, just escape, because I really needed, it was a point where it was like, do or die. So when I learned meditation, transcendental meditation, literally it began that profound, spiritual awakening, that self healing began at that time. And then the creative powers, that empty tap that was closed or not, or trickling rather, in the beginning, just opened up. And I was able to create on a profound level, like it just gets better and better with a daily practice.
Wow.
So I became an artist because of TM. Like it truly gave me that
Mm.
self-confidence, and it made me discover who I am again and be the strong mother and the mother that's self-empowered and independent and sovereign, the sovereignty and self-love,
Mhm.
all of that.
Mhm.
I had to go through that incredibly difficult journey, which I'm very thankful for. And so I did. And so my work is all about that meditative experience, a healing experience that healed me during a difficult time.
Wow.
And I thought, oh my
Mhm.
God, if these artworks are healing me in the digital,
Mhm.
then it'll heal others. And I knew at that time that we were being gaslit and we were being force fed behaviors on these social media apps that were antisocial, that were narcissistic, that were really negative habits. Because it was the first time when the smartphone really introduced the fact that billions of people around the world's behaviors were dictated by technology, not culture, religion, or art. And I knew
Mhm.
when I forecasted and I wrote a manifesto on techism, because it's the movement where I saw this siloing of art, the siloing of technology during that period, early
Mm.
2000s. And I thought that's a real detriment to society, because artists should be engaging with technology and collaborating with technologists to really understand the emerging technology and humanize it and
Right.
influence how it develops so that it's more humane, that it expresses humanism, that it's not solely for corporate agendas, that should be a balance, right? And
Mhm. Mhm.
so knowing that billions of people around the world are probably feeling the same FOMO, narcissism, the same comparing, unattainable beauty standards and all of these toxic things that were coming out into our culture and brainwashing us every day, I knew that we're headed to a mental health crisis. And
Absolutely.
so that's why I wanted to create Zen on the screen and create a movement of, let's use the screen and technology for wellness. Let's use it for humanity. Let's stop this negative cycle, and let's reach out to technologists and say, hey, there's a better way. And this is another way to see the technology in a way that we can move forward as well. So
I
that's how
love that.
that's how it all
Yeah.
sort of, in a nutshell.
That's amazing. No, it's fascinating because as you know, as an artist, just going through any top museum, you feel that those artists were connecting with the divine. They were connecting with that higher self. How else could a human create some of these things? It's amazing.
Yeah.
So I when I found you on Instagram, I was like, wow, this is so fascinating what she's doing. And your artwork has just exploded. Like you had your art displayed on the Sphere in Las Vegas, where I grew up, which I was like, wow, this is incredible. You just came back from China, where you were displaying your art at the World Economic Forum. You had your artwork on a bunch of the screens in, Times Square in New York. I mean, some really fascinating and really surprising ways of displaying art, because you don't think about turning Times Square into an art museum, which I just was like, wow. So, how did that come about? How did some of these projects that you've been working on really come to fruition?
Continuum is an artwork that is traveling and being viewed around the world, as you'd mentioned. Continuum basically is a derivative of my graduate artwork that when I graduated from my Master's of Fine Art program in Singapore. And it is a meditative experience. I always knew that sound and light and heat and healing sound frequencies together in combination is a powerful modality for people to enter different brain states. And I was experimenting with this since that time in school. And so I wanted to create immersive experiences through very large screens, right? And so Times Square was always that the goal, right, for me,
Oh,
like
wow. Yeah.
multiple, right, screens, right? Like let's take over
Or
Times
like Tokyo, like taking over.
Square, Shinjuku Crossing, right? Like this kind of thing. The bigger the better. The bigger the
Yeah.
better, the more profound the message is, because when you take away this corporate messaging and advertising that we're so used to in our environment, we just don't even think about it anymore. When you disrupt that with art, that's so minimalist, so zen, it's jarring. It's awe. Like
Wow.
it's pretty sublime, right? At least in
Right.
my opinion. But that was the general, reaction. So in Times Square, how that project came about was in 2018. I submitted a proposal to the Times Square Arts. Jean Cooney, who is the curator for Times Square Arts, they curate artists to take over Times Square every month, and they've been doing it for 10 years. And they are the ones that organize, and it's really grueling work.
Yeah, I bet.
Communicating with all of the owners of the different screens, and everyone's different, right? Asking permission, submitting the proposals, getting the approvals, and then coordinating all of that's a huge task. 2018 was when I submitted the proposal, but it wasn't until post-COVID when they were, firing up after lockdowns. February of 2022, first installation. They asked me to come on board and to exhibit my work, and I was thrilled. I was on the moon. I said, yes. How can I? Yes, thank you. Huge
Yeah.
honor. And it kind of went
Huge
back.
honor.
It's huge honor.
Yeah.
But people understood, especially in
Yeah.
that time,
Hmm.
post-COVID, we all remember it was pretty traumatic. And, mental health and wellness was, the first priority for everyone. And people understood, the power of meditation and wellness and self-care. But then having that translated into the most frenetic part of the world, the center of capitalism and, power and in wealth, I thought, wow, like that truly was a major statement. And it also signaled a change, something was different this time. Like we've
Hmm.
all come from this and things have changed. So, and Gen Z loved it. And there was one,
Yeah.
like, had 111 screens. They all said yes. In fact, it was the first time in the program's history that all the screens said yes. But there's one screen in the back that's behind the seating area. It's the Coca-Cola screen, and Coca-Cola is a very big screen. It's like part of a tower. And they never participated in any of the programming ever. They've always rejected it. And same here, they were the only screen that was like not in the programming. And it was funny that on TikTok, the Gen Z community, they were all calling out Coca-Cola, saying F Coca-Cola, they don't care about us, cancel Coca-Cola. From that reaction, Jeannie told me that she was contacted by Coca-Cola's marketing team, and they said, get us into your program as soon as possible.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
Wow. If you can disrupt Coca-Cola. Wow. Yeah. And New York got hit so hard in the beginning of the pandemic. The images coming out of there and the tragedies that were happening with just thousands of people dying, and
crazy.
it was just so heartbreaking. So yes, that city needed a lot of healing. And New York is one of the top centers for culture, for art, for fine art. The Guggenheim, the Metropolitan Museum. I mean, some of the museums that rival the Louvre, and places in the world
Yes,
that people travel everywhere to come
center
to
of
these
culture.
museums.
Absolutely.
So I lived in Boston and got to go to the Monet exhibit in the Boston Fine Art Museum, and he was trying to do what you did, where he had his water lilies, but he had them at different, and they had them all on display,
Gorgeous,
towering,
gorgeous.
huge. I mean, I don't even know how he would paint on something like that back that long ago, and they were all on each wall, so you could just
Mm,
turn and see a different time of day when he painted his water lily, famous water lilies. So
mhm.
that I thought was astounding. And this is like, I can't imagine. I'm sorry I missed it. I would have loved to have been there in Times Square and looked up and seen that. That would have been
Hopefully we can
incredible.
do a recap sometime soon. I would love
Yeah, right?
to
That would be so cool. Even LA needs to do more like that. You
you're
know,
right.
they don't really have like a Times Square necessarily, but there's a lot of screens that they could
Oh,
light up.
there's a new immersive experience theater that just opened up by Cosm, COSM, in
Oh,
Los Angeles.
nice.
Yeah, and
Oh,
I know
neat.
I know them well. So there's
Oh, awesome.
that'll happen
Yeah,
there.
so I think more and more places need to jump on board with that. I
100%.
think it's also super fascinating that you were really involved in blockchain and
Yeah.
NFT, like right out the gate. You've done some incredible collaborations with like Lamborghini and Mercedes-Benz and fashion designers even, but NFTs obviously are digital.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, and you had one of the highest selling NFTs at that time, like
Yeah, it's a
with your
record sale.
Lamborghini
Hard
one.
pass. Yeah.
Wow. Like, how did that come about too? Was that
Oh,
just
wow.
something you created and put it out to the world, or was it a
Well,
collaboration?
so my whole foray into NFTs is because I've always been an advocate for data sovereignty, data ownership.
Yes.
I'm so well, when I read Shoshana Zuboff's book, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism in 2018, I was shocked and horrified. But I knew something was up, where whenever we say I consent and all these apps are free, something's got to give. What are we what are we paying for this? It's our data. But our data is our personal information. It is, I think it's a violation of human rights. I think that data should be recognized as a property, personal property, and as we all know, one of the tenets of democracy is that we have our own property. Property ownership and sovereignty they go hand in hand, and so we own our own property in a democracy. However, in the digital realm, we don't, and that's a major disconnect, and that has to be fixed.
Mhm.
So, I was ever since I read that book, I was so I was like looking and searching for the answers and how I can make a difference or take action, be an activist. I became an activist from that book.
Mhm.
And I discovered during the pandemic, November, December of 2020, it was December of 2020. I looked into, I'm a digital artist, and every time I send my digital file over WeTransfer, I get anxiety. I feel like, oh, my file is now, anyone can own it, anyone can copy it and claim that they own it. It's like I have no control over who owns my data. So I want to know how I can control that. And I said, blockchain, it's supposed to be verification. I didn't understand what blockchain was. So I did my research. I Googled blockchain for art, and then NFTs came up, and I'm like, oh, so I went down that rabbit hole, and I learned about the power of NFTs, transforming digital assets into and creating verified digital assets on chain. And I thought, wow, what a revolution. I said, and then of course there were a couple of galleries that popped up, and I was like, oh my God. And I'm
Mm.
looking at the art, I'm like, I have to be in on this now. So I signed up
Right.
for Super Rare, and I signed up for Known Origin. Known Origin poo-pooed me. They rejected me, but Super Rare brought me on. So during the initiation meeting that we had with about 11 other artists, in the meeting, we're talking about NFTs, and I thought, how are these NFTs displayed? Because I'm all about displaying the NFT on a screen, like an artwork, like a canvas in your home or in a public space. I'm all about that. But at that time, it was so nascent, And a lot of crypto artists were only creating NFT arts to be seen on your phone as an NFT on the platform. It's like, that's so freaking boring. Are you seriously?
Yeah.
All of you are like,
Yeah.
sorry, but it's on screens in your home, okay, or public spaces. And so, I asked a question. So where are they being displayed then if it's not displayed on screens? And they said, oh, well, a lot of the collectors have their own metaverse galleries or homes on like CryptoVoxels or Decentraland or, Somnium Space. And I thought, oh my God. Well, okay. So I was like, the light bulb hit me. I was like, so we're really early. This is earlier than ever. Like this is just the flat out baby steps of the NFT space. Um, NFTs will become 3D digital assets powered by AI. I just knew it, right? That's where it's going. And it was rewind now, because that was December. I rewind to March during the lockdowns. I created a house because, I was like, "Ah, man, I want to build my dream home. I'm stuck in my condo here, in Toronto, beautiful views and it's gorgeous, but I want to create a like really fantasy house, but I want to be able to see it in VR because I was really experimenting with XR, extended reality technology at the time. So I hired an architect, an architectural renderer, right, from freelancer.com. And I gave him all of my designs and my art and everything. I mapped it out and I'm like, just do the rendering. And he's like, yeah, I want to use Unreal Engine 4. And I'm like, oh, cool. Like, I never heard of that. Like, yeah, it's a gaming engine. Look at the graphics. I'm like, oh my God. So we're on this. I'm telling him what to do, directing him. I'm like, we're building this thing, right? It was done and it was masterpiece. It's like my dream home, like screens, substrates, throughout the entire ceiling and floors, fully immersive. It's like a Zen home of the future with screens, right? I'm like with my art playing on it, and I'm like, oh my God, like this is my dream home. So I knew that I had a masterpiece because I designed all the furniture and for glass to be produced eventually. Actually, my vision was to create the physical Mars house with the physical furniture and to create a whole line of meditative design, I called it. So fast forward now, we're like, after that moment where he's like, yeah, they have the collectors have their art hanging in their metaverse homes. I'm like, I have a house. I have a house that's living in the metaverse. So I wonder if the world is really ready for that step where we can actually own digital physical assets that are, homes, you name it, assets, not just JPEGs of like drawings.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my hypothesis to the world when I minted the Mars house, March
Mm-hmm.
14th, 2021. I'll never forget. I minted it, and a collector AOI just came in, swooped up all of my art, and made an offer on the Mars house as well. And I thought, does he really understand what the Mars house is? So we had a chat. And I'm like, so he's like, yeah, so Krista, love the Mars house, but is it exactly what I think it is? I'm like, yeah, like I give you the 3D assets and then you can actually set it up in your metaverse and have people in there and like interact with them and everything. It's a meeting place. And he loved it. So we settled on a record sale, made history.
That is incredible. That's it's
It
such
was
a
so
revolutionary idea, right? That you could sell a digital house.
no idea. Like the whole it was published on Architectural Digest. And that's the whole every architect on earth knows the Mars house because it was like, what is that? What are you talking about? It's a rendering that I do every day. What do you mean she sold that thing? What? I don't know what's going on here. It's absolute scam, right?
Right.
Before the metaverse was a thing. That was before Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
Meta. So I was
Right.
definitely ahead of the curve. And I'm used to it. I'm used to being in the future and, like
Mm-hmm.
5 steps ahead and just, I just wait for people to catch up with the ideas. And
Mm-hmm.
it was really humorous to watch the outrage of a lot of people who are like, oh my God, this is such bull, like what is that? It was like, oh wow, these people really like they'll get it. They'll get it within a year or two. And lo and behold,
Mm-hmm.
it's now circulated in museums and
Wow.
it's really I mean, there are papers being published on it. PhDs and
Wow.
architecture and design, and metaverse now is a thing. Because of Mars
Hmm.
House, it opened up the world to the metaverse and the possibility of
Right.
actually having a lifestyle there and interaction and digital, physical interfacing of our lives, and our assets.
Mhm.
And that is where we're going. Like that is happening.
Wow.
So that's inevitable.
Right. I mean, you think about people are interacting with their screens nonstop and, on Zoom and, video games are kind of us an essence of like trying to put yourself into a altered reality, right? That for at least a little while. And, you know, it's just funny when you're a visionary like you are and you have ideas and you see that how it'll play out over the years and as more and more people like the light bulb goes on for them,
Yeah.
it's mediocre minds, like Einstein said, mediocre minds will always come in opposition to bright minds. I forget, I'm paraphrasing. And yeah, so it's no surprise, right?
No, it was
um,
really fun. It was fair. I loved that time. It was like a whirlwind. Oh my God, I was so busy and there was so much attention on it. It was like crazy. It was fun though. A
wow.
lot of fun.
I know. I remember hearing about NFTs and going, "What? What? I don't quite
Exactly.
understand." Like I see now, like I grasp it now more because I know about Bitcoin and things like that, but
Yeah.
it's such an abstract idea for most people, but now it's like, oh, well, yeah, it's digital art and it's you own that art and you sell it and somebody else can sell it, but there's the original. It's like having an original Picasso. It's the same idea, but
Proof of
it's
ownership.
digital. Right.
It's digital proof of ownership. Exactly. Immutable on chain.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So
And
it's fascinating.
but when you think about like, what is happening now, and with AGI around the corner, it's ChatGPT that came out like really recently, right? Has it been a year even? Like it's crazy. I mean, we're already at
Hmm.
ChatGPT
It's
40.
exploded.
And when you think about how AI is really accelerating humanity's integration into the digital lifestyle, digital civilization, right? It's
Hmm.
happening, and the disruption is real. The existential threat of powerful AI models and automatic general intelligence, which means it's an alien intelligence that thinks for itself and creates on its own, literally is an alien intelligence that's smarter than us by a billion times. If it owns our data and has access to all of our data, that's a very dangerous existential crisis. So that power
Hmm.
dynamic of a centralized LLM owning all our data, and we are completely disempowered because we can't even capture our data. Like that's something that I'm really working on right now, where
Yeah.
we can actually create. So I'm working on a project called Julia AI with my partner Imani Wadi, and he's the one that created the whole thing, and I just come on board to support it. Um, Basically, what it is your own personal AI agent that protects your data privacy. All the data that you create while you're on your online, all your devices is deep learned through your personal AI agent. And that AI agent is specifically designed to optimize you as a human being, your mental health, your physical health, your education, and also to amplify your talents and your IP, your knowledge to others, so you can share with other agents. Like you and I can have an offline meeting and brainstorm on projects with other AI agents around the world, experts around the world, because there are no limitations now, geographically or time and space with these AI agents. Can you imagine how many solutions we'll find in the world? And if we give every child on
Hmm.
earth this capability, what ChatGPT doesn't want you to know, what these centralized companies don't want you to know, is that you can have the same power in your own pocket.
Wow.
We need that. And that's what every child needs.
Fascinating.
That's how we're going to protect the next generation from AGI, is if they're empowered with their own AI agent that knows how to navigate the world of AGI. It's very dangerous,
Hmm.
and it will protect you. And so that's also a
Hmm.
security measure as well as optimization. And every child in the world, like literally. non-discriminately, everybody. If they can have this AI agent, then we are really going to elevate human civilization on a level
Mm,
that's so transcendent, collaborative, cooperative, and not about zero sum, but abundance, collaboration. Let's find solutions. Let's find, and you'll be able to find resources, find people, find collaborators, find what you need instantly. I mean,
wow.
it's very exciting.
Isn't that? Wow. I
Yeah.
know. I remember the days of encyclopedias.
I know.
Now it's like you
I was
just
thinking
ask a
about that same
question to your
generation.
phone, right? We're of that
Of
generation.
that
I know.
generation.
It's embarrassing. It's
Encyclopedias,
like
etc.
these kids have no idea how lucky they are, but also how they need to protect themselves, right?
Yes.
Yeah, fascinating. It's been
And
such a pleasure getting to know you. This is fascinating. I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say that I think that women have been lost in the space and not included enough.
Mm,
And women are shy
right.
about it because it is such a, it's unfamiliar and you need to know code in the old
Mm,
version of tech. You have to be really good at, STEM and all that stuff. And, quite frankly, the numbers are that men mostly are in STEM, right? So
mhm,
now we're entering an age where you don't need to know coding. You just have to have very good language and organizational skills, architectural skills, and human skills. That's female
mm,
energy. So now we're
right.
entering a world, and then we're calling it Julie AI. It's reason. Imani understands the value of big mama energy and how we need to imbue that into the world and create a better world and take care of people and facilitate
Mm,
collaboration, cooperation. And that's female energy that we need to bring into the world in a strong way. So that's very powerful.
wow. That's so crazy. I love it. It's so fascinating. We definitely need to have a follow up on this. This is such a
Yeah.
fascinating topic, and you know
Yes.
so much about it. Um, so I always end my podcasts with, how do you define living a beautiful life? And
Mm.
you've touched on that a little bit, but I'd love to hear your answer for that.
Oh wow, living a beautiful life is really having moving forward in the world with authenticity, self-love, and purpose,
Mm,
and love, family, friends,
mhm.
being of service, and finding a way to tap into your purpose through your talents, your passions, helping others. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful life. Yeah.
Love it. Well, and thank you for bringing art into the world that is helping people to experience that. I think that's the biggest takeaway, is that you are out there creating things that are transforming the art world and inspiring other artists, I'm sure, who are also looking at what you're doing and going, oh my gosh, yeah, like we need more of that. We need more of the spirit in this world, in whatever you define that as. So, Krista, it has been such a pleasure getting to know you today. I look forward to having lunch as you're close by. And
Yes.
thank you again. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please go check out KristaKim.com. Go follow her all over social media and see all the
Oh,
incredible projects that
Krista
she's
Kim,
doing.
KristaKimStudio.com. KristaKim.com is a
Oh, I'm
different.
sorry.
I think she's
Oh,
a
okay.
stripper too.
Krista Kim Studio. So, oh,
Just saying.
sorry about that. Don't
All
go
good.
to that one. All right. Um,
Funny.
I'll make sure to put the links down below. Make sure you like and subscribe and tune into our other videos that you'll see below, above, below, wherever they are. And thank you again for tuning in. Thank you, Krista.
Thank you, Erin.